own green issue, which came in the form of a cupful of custard. The business secretary was accosted as he arrived for a summit on the low-carbon economy this morning. A climate change protester strolled up to him and threw the liquid in his face. The incident has raised serious questions about the level of security surrounding ministers. Our Home Affairs correspondent, Daniel Sanford, reports.
Lord Mandelson was arriving for a conference promoting green industry when a young woman approached.
Oh, God's sake, get away.
The liquid was custard dyed green.
And the fact that he corrupted our government in order to bring about something that's going to destroy the climate.
And then Layla Dean, a well-known environmental protester, was allowed to just walk away. Repeated in slow motion, you can see how close she got and how the custard hit the business secretary directly in the face. She immediately told us why she drenched him in green slime.
It's not right that someone like Peter Mandelson can stand up and talk about being green. The only thing green about Peter Mandelson is the slime coursing through his veins.
This afternoon, the Metropolitan Police said detectives were investigating, though they'd not received a formal complaint. Lord Mandelson tried to make light of it.
Whilst I'm prepared to take my fair share of the green revolution onto my shoulders, I'm less keen on having it in my face.
And appropriately for the former spin doctor, the Prime Minister was also on message.
If anybody doubted the greening of Peter Mandelson and his willingness to take the green agenda on his shoulders, we've seen it in practice on our television screens already this morning.
Pelting politicians is nothing new. This was Edward Heath after his 1970 election victory. In 1984, Margaret Thatcher was hit by an egg. And John Prescott infamously fought back in 2001.
Those moments when you receive that kind of assault, you don't know what it is. He couldn't have known that whether that was acid being thrown in his face. In my case, when they hit me with an egg, it was a soft liquid running down my neck, and I wondered perhaps whether that was blood and that I'd been cut.
Only 20 years ago, public access to politicians was very different, with anyone being able to walk right up to the front door of Downing Street. But that all changed with the introduction of these security gates in 1989. All the same, it is still very different to America. And very few people want to see our politicians protected in the American way, with the president travelling in an armoured Cadillac called the Beast. That said, incidents like this do always lead to a review of security. Daniel Sanford, BBC News, Westminster.
Our political correspondent Carol Walker is at Westminster. Lord Mandelson shrugged off the incident today, but how serious are concerns about security?
Well, yes, both Lord Mandelson and the Prime Minister were prepared to see the funny side of this, as I'm sure others will. But there are some serious questions to be asked here about why there appeared to be virtually no police presence whatsoever for a high-profile minister arriving at an event like this, particularly as the direct action group involved, Plain Stupid, had carried out a protest in exactly the same place only yesterday during a speech on aviation by the Transport Secretary Geoff Hoon. Now, we know that Lord Mandelson has chosen not to have the very strict round-the-clock security which, as a former Northern Ireland Secretary, he could have requested. Of course, the Prime Minister, who arrived shortly after him, will have arrived with his own ring of security. But ultimately, it comes down to a question of balance. You can't have democracy in a fortress. Politicians want to be open and accessible to the public, whilst bearing in mind the very serious terrorist threat that there is in this country. And I think that review that's going on there now will be looking very closely as to whether what happened today amounted to a lapse which could have had much more serious consequences.
Carol Walker, thank you very much. Well, Lord Mandelson was set upon as he arrived at a summit to launch the government's strategy for a low-carbon economy. It's claimed that the plan could create 400,000 new jobs in the next 8 years, helping to lift the economy out of recession and cutting the UK's carbon emissions. John Moylan reports.
Green businesses could provide jobs and growth for the UK for decades to come. But is the government doing enough to make that happen?
This is one company that's grabbed the low-carbon agenda. It's a taxi firm, but it only uses environmentally friendly hybrid vehicles. That means it can help its customers reduce their carbon footprint.
3 years ago, it had 5 cars on the road. Today, it has 100. But the boss says there is little encouragement from government along the way.
In our development, government has played practically no role in supporting our business or businesses like ours. And now, government, if we want to have any hope of building a real green, low-carbon economy, government really needs to step up to the plate, because otherwise we're not going to get there.
Prime Minister.
So today the government signalled a change. Gordon Brown and senior ministers lined up to endorse a new low-carbon industrial strategy aimed at putting the UK at the centre of what Lord Mandelson described as a green revolution.
This transition to low carbon is an environmental and an economic imperative and opportunity for us. It is also inevitable. There is no high carbon future for us.
And Britain could be well placed to take advantage of the new green economy. The government claims the UK already has the 6th largest low-carbon economy in the world. Green industries, from energy to transport and environmental activities, employ 880,000 people, and they could create another 400,000 jobs in the coming years. Many of those jobs will be aimed at meeting the government's target of an 80% cut in carbon emissions by 2050. But the Tories say that target simply won't be achieved unless the government stops talking and starts taking action.
The government